Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Xarian, and this is a commentary on my 149 any percent glitchless speedrun of Pokemon Red. This is currently the world record, beating the previous record of 150. In this run, I'm going to explain a lot of the new discoveries that have been found in this game since my original 150 over the summer. I got my 150 in July and then got one on console to be more official in October, and I've been really pleased and in some cases almost surprised with how much has been found in this game in the past 6 months, when a lot of people, including myself, had just played the game and thought of so many strats that hadn't worked. We all thought this was the most optimized game, and a lot of people have contributed to making this game even more optimized in the past 6 months. So this run is very much a reflection of a lot of the new stuff that's been found. It's not so much the luckiest run as it is a well-routed and well-executed run that got some pretty timely luck, but in some areas you might be surprised with the average or perhaps bad luck that I get. Overall, a very lucky run though. I won't be explaining so much of the basic stuff in this run. I did a commentary on my original 150 that explains things like badge boosts and why I'm going to be walking behind Professor Oak in a few minutes to talk to him. So if you're new to speedrunning and you want to get an idea for the basic stuff, the basics of running this game, I would recommend checking that out. That's the one I did in July on emulator. And those are the splits I'm running against here because that was a faster real time than my 150 on console. So I'll be explaining a lot of the new strats. I'll be answering questions in chat. Again, people in chat, go ahead and post your question again if I don't get to it within 5 minutes, because I'll be reading my notes first and then glancing at chat. You might have noticed that the color palette for this run is different than a lot of other runs, such as my original 150. It was a perfect rival fight, by the way. The reason for that is that, number one, this color palette makes it easier to navigate through Rock Tunnel. You can actually see the trainers with this color palette, whereas with all the other color palettes, it's in the dark. It's not that difficult to do it in the dark, but it's easier to bonk and be worried about hitting optional trainers. And to get this color palette, you just hold up and B on the Game Boy title screen. On emulator, there's a slightly different setup for it, but on a Game Boy player, and I believe a few other console setups, you can press up and B. It's also easier on my eyes, that's the second reason. So I kind of took a break from Red after I got that 150 on console in October. I got that second 150 run because the Pokemon speedrunning community decided to not accept emulators anymore as world record runs. There was some suspicion over those and just generally controversy that wasn't healthy for the community, and it was a controversial decision to essentially ban emulators. But the community seems to be a bit more stable now, and there haven't been many controversies over the legitimacy of runs in a while, so that's a good thing. And for me, it wasn't too difficult to get console set up and to get used to it, with the exception of this D-pad, which cooperated very nicely in this run, actually. So I returned to the game in the fall to get a world record back. And then I came back to focus on 149 after I'd played some other games, primarily Emerald, which was pretty frustrating. If you've run that game, you probably know why. For me, it was a combination of having to grind for Abra and a good starter, good stats, and just not having as much knowledge about the game and how the AI works. It was a bit difficult to come up with strats. One of the great things about this game is that there's so much that's been documented as far as like how the code works, what the AI does, testing how long every piece of movement takes. So you have all the information you need to put together a really good run. So when I came back to this game for 149, my focus really was on just playing well, minimizing mistakes, and trying to avoid the grind that I did over the summer when I got my original 150, and that a lot of runners kind of rely on to get the time they want, is just grinding out attempts for good luck. I don't mind getting a run that has good luck if it isn't like perfect execution, because inevitably a good run's going to have good luck. But I'd rather it be a product of execution and strats. And this run was very much that, as I explained at the beginning. It was not the luckiest run, and I think the newer strats that have been found in the past 6 months allowed this run to happen. And I'm just really bad in a setting where I just like grind out resets. I get really frustrated quickly, as you've probably noticed in the past few days when I didn't get the early game luck I needed. So my goal was really to get good enough at the game that I wouldn't have to do that, and thankfully I was able to get this run without having to grind too much. So I got a 4 encounter Route 1 after a good rival fight, so this is a pretty good time to be seeing my Nidoran. 30% to get a level 3 or 4 Nidoran in this bush. And a level 4 is better than a level 3, so I'm glad to get that. I'm going to get this one on the 3rd ball, which is about average. It's only really bad if you like use 4 or more balls, because you might run out when you need to catch Paris or Oddish later. So this is a very solid Nidoran time. One change from the route that I did over the summer was buying 8 Pokeballs instead of 6. I just been having a lot of difficulty with like running out of Pokeballs and having that mess up my items or having to reset because of it. And when I did the money management, it turned out that 8 Pokeballs worked out really perfectly, and I almost never had problems resetting because I ran out. And I could actually continue a run after getting like a 4th or 5th encounter Nidoran if it was first encounter. And even 3rd ball can be an issue if you bought 6, and for this run it's going to be totally fine. Also, I'm able to take later starts. Like I could take like a 7.5 or 8 minute Nidoran and still get 149, so if I'm in the Nido bush for a while, it's not the worst thing. Level 4 is better than a level 3 for a lot of reasons. The top 3 times in this game all had level 4 Nidorans. This run and my 2 150s. For some reason, you're slightly more likely to catch a level 4 Nidoran from full health than a level 3, which is one reason you just tackle level 3s. So when you do end up catching it, you have it at full health and don't need to have as many potions. You're a little bit better off for Route 3, and there is a strat you can use on Brock where Nidoran takes damage and it's not at risk of dying. You're also a higher level for a couple of important Pokemon on Route 3 when you catch a level 4, the second of which can end up saving you like 20 seconds. You also don't need as much Mount Moon experience with the level 4. So I only picked up 1 potion, and that was the potion in Vermilion City. So I've got that and 17 HP going into Brock. I get the tree potion now because if the Weedle fight goes poorly, I can pick up the second one and be in better shape, whereas if I just pick up the potion before Weedle Guy and Weedle fight goes poorly, then I will be a lot more likely to die to Brock. Also, getting the tree potion allows me to access potions in slot 2 instead of slot 3, and the menuing is about 0.3 seconds faster to access slot 2 than slot 3. So I'd be pretty worried here if I got first turn tackle and didn't have a potion, but I'll be fine unless he crits me this turn. I don't check my stats there, that was just an accident. Same thing with checking Squirtle's level 6 stats. I try to mash through it fast so I don't lose like a second checking stats, and sometimes I miss. It's not a big deal, but it can affect how many items you buy in Pewter City. I think a critical did like 10 or 11 on my defense, so I was fine there, and then after Screech, like the most he can do here is 20, so like with the wrong combination, I think I could have died in this fight, but it's very unlikely. And I get those jingle skips there to save some time on Brock. And then I see really good stats. 16 attack, 11 defense, 15 speed, 12 special. 16, 15 is in 16 attack, 15 speed is what you want to see. Attack is really important because you hit more damage ranges with really good attack, and 15 speed allows you to be usually faster than Misty Starmie, and Misty's a very dangerous fight, and faster than some other key Pokemon. And you don't have to pick up Carbos to outspeed Sabrina's Alakazam, typically. Now that appeared as a gold split simply because my previous gold had been removed for some reason, so it's not actually the best Brock split I've had, but still extremely good. And this is a really good start to this run. Level 4 Nidoran, good stats, and a very good Brock time. Now I buy 9 potions there, and I was considering buying 10, because 11 defense can be a real problem for this next fight, not this one, but Short Sky coming up. You can actually be stuck in a heal loop, so this could have really backfired to buy only 9 potions, but most of the time it's fine. And with 15 speed, being faster than Misty Starmie, I won't need to heal to full for Misty, unless I get like the lowest 15 and it's a speed tie. 12 special, actually, you want like 1 or 2 more potions for that than you do with 11 or 13 special, and that'll become clearer later in the run. Basically, it has to do with what healing items you'll use to manipulate Red Bar on the Elite Four. So I checked my stats briefly there. I was hoping to see 14 special and 18 attack. I think I did see 14 special. In the run, I was only focused on attack, though, and I saw 18, which means my attack is perfect. Now, what that means is that my speed is either 14 or 15. Now, that might sound crazy, that seeing my attack and knowing what my attack DV is determines my speed, but I think it was Narm, No2, and Extra Tricky, and maybe a few others, who discovered that Nidoran's attack and speed DVs are pretty closely related. So if you have an attack DV of 15, then if your speed is good, like if it's 15 at level 8, then you know it's either 14 or 15. And that depends on your defense and special. So because of what my defense and special stats are roughly, I know that my speed DV is 14, which is definitely faster than Misty Starmie. So these stats are extremely good, and I'm going to update them in the bottom left in a second. I had those DVs updated throughout the stream for the benefit of viewers and also for my own reference. So here's Short Sky. I'm going to lead with Horn Attack here because I have good attack, and if I critical once and get a good range, then he'll die in 2, as opposed to Leer, Horn Attack is a guaranteed 3-shot. That Tail Whip fail is really good because he could have killed me from 18 with Quick Attack. In fact, it would have been a pretty decent chance of dying, and I could have done nothing about it. Because if I had healed, then he could just 2-shot me. That's what I mean by getting stuck in a heal loop when you have bad defense. If you have 12 defense at level 8, it's much easier. Fortunately, I do get wrapped by Ekans despite being faster than it, so I have to heal. The reason I heal during the wrap rather than waiting to see how long the wrap is so that I don't heal on a turn that he ends the wrap, thus giving him another turn. So there was a chance he could have 2-turned wrapped and then I could have killed him and been in red bar, but most likely he was going to wrap me longer, and so I would need to, in that case, risk healing on a turn that he stops wrapping. If I had a worse time or a worse Nidoran, I might have risked it. Try to get the red bar here, but it's not essential to have red bar for Route 3, and sometimes it can kill you if you get crit by Caterpie. So that was a very good Rattata, but a poor Ekans. This is still a very solid time, not quite as good as the splits I'm going up against. That was a time that may never be achieved again to get an 18-19 Route 3 split. So I'm still very much thinking about this being a 149 run with how good this Nidoran is. You'll see I filled out my HP and special DVs, or what ranges of what they could be. HP DV of 9 is slightly above average, and special is either slightly below average, average, or slightly above average. I'm hoping it's 9 because that'll allow me to not risk some damage ranges later. This fight here is pretty standard with good stats, and when you're level 4, even if you get string shotted by the first Weedle, by the only Weedle, then you'll have badge boosts for the Pokemon you're slower than, so it's not too bad. If you've run this game, you're familiar with the idea of conserving Horn Attack PP by using Tackle when you can on this route. That generally isn't a problem when you have really high attack and speed. So you can see I was able to use Tackle on that last Metapod. Normally you have to Horn Attack it 3 times, but my attack is so good that I can save one there, and that critical on Caterpie was nice too. If you have 14 or 15 DB attack, these last 2 fights are a lot easier to save Horn Attacks on. Like this Caterpie is a guaranteed 2-shot. That the Metapod coming up is a guaranteed 4-shot. Even if I get double string shot, I think it's a guaranteed 4-shot. And if I had gotten 1 string shot, I would be faster than Metapod and could 3-shot it. So I wasn't worried about PP at all, which is one reason that I Horn Attacked the Rattata rather than tackling it when it could have killed. Considering my bad defense, a tackle miss would have been pretty costly there. So that could have been a really key decision in the run, because I end up using exactly 25 Horn Attacks here. And just generally, you want to not worry about conserving Horn Attacks early in this route unless you have like terrible stats, because you're likely to have a useful critical at some point on the route that will save one. It's possible that you get punished for not saving them on the last Metapod, but the worst thing there is that you just lose turns. You're not going to die because of it. I think I take fewer steps in this grass now, as in I enter right before the trainer, just because I don't want to get 2 encounters. It's tough to kind of calculate whether that's worth it to not go in as early, but it seems like it because a second encounter is 10 seconds. So I get pretty fortunate to get a pretty quick Pidgey and then have it use Gust so that I'm in red bar for the catch. That saves about 4 seconds. And this is going to be about 30 seconds behind entering Mount Moon, which is very good. Anything sub 19 is great, actually. And when you have a good Nidoran, you start to think about what this run could be. But I'd been having so many runs with good pace up until Surge and then just dying somehow that I wasn't too into this run yet. But this Nido was one of the best that I've ever had, despite that defense being one of the lowest you can have. So because I have good attack, I do not pick up Water Gun, which is the TM, immediately to the left when you enter Mount Moon. Pretty much any run that is going to be, like sub 152 is likely to not pick up Water Gun, just because when you pick it up, you also should be fighting the optional trainer Hiker in Mount Moon, and it ends up being like a minute and a half or minute 20 seconds just to do all of that, so that you are at a higher level later and you don't have to fight a Geodude using Thrash. With this attack, it's going to be pretty safe to skip Water Gun. And even if I don't get some damage ranges or a 4-turn Thrash, it's going to end up being faster than picking up Water Gun. It's pretty much the standard now, although if you have bad attack, you really can't do it. So this fight, you can sometimes two-shot the Voltorb with good attack if you get Screech, but I didn't get great ranges. Coming up here is a slight difference to the movement path to pick up these two items, and give some credit to Visciv for this because he was doing a slightly different path that I observed, and then I just did some looked into this a little bit myself and realized that when you pick up the first item, which is a rare candy, if you just immediately turn up, there's a chance you can get an encounter on the frame that you turn. But if you keep walking straight, you're not going to get an encounter there because you're just staying in the same direction. So you continue walking straight and then move up. It does cost you a bonk when you're getting the escape rope, but that's worth the one fewer encounter tile. So that's actually like a save of 0.3 or 0.4 seconds, which at this stage of routing this game is pretty significant. So thanks to Visciv for using a different route there and getting that started. This Oddish is almost a guaranteed two-shot with good attack, and you're just going to see this Nido cleaning up a lot of the Pokemon I'll face in the early game because of its good attack. If you have bad attack, this can be pretty brutal. Like, you can actually three-shot this Bellsprout with really bad attack. You see how much I did with the first one there, so a lot of the difficulties you can face in the early game I won't have to explain because my Nidoran is so good, but if you've played this game you know how bad it is to have low attack, which is why we don't take bad Nidos. Can't you get an extra encounter from the bonk? You actually can't. Like, a bonk is not a turn frame as long as you continue your movement. As far as I know, you can't get an encounter there. So I'm up to 4 encounters at this point, but no Paris. And I really want Paris because I have Pidgey. If I don't get Paris, I have to find an Oddish, which can take forever. If I had Spear, I could just trade it for Farfetch'd. There I Gen 1 miss a Zubat, but it's not a big deal. Level 9s don't have Supersonic. I need to be killing, ideally, 2 level 9 Zubats here. That'll get me exactly the experience I need to get Thrash earlier. I can also kill a level 8 and a 10, but I just see a level 9 to this point, and I'm not going to be killing Geodudes unless it's like the very end. I might consider it. It'd be like a 3-shot. It's a strat I've been considering, but I haven't done yet. It's very, very helpful to get experience, and that's going to come into play later in this run in a very interesting way. I'm not going to end up getting the experience I need here. I could have killed that, and we'll come back to that decision later. Amoeba, corner bonking, yeah, what Visciv said, corner bonking is getting turn frames. If you just corner bonk without like letting go of the directional button, you won't get encounters. So I'm pretty sure it's the same concept when you're bonking into an item. Now I didn't evolve early so that I could kill that 11 Zubat. I evolve here for several reasons. The main one is that I'm more likely to catch Paris with Nidorino, because Nidorino is less likely to crit. If I crit Paris, it might die. And also if I do crit and it's a level 12 Paris, it'll very likely survive if I'm Nidorino, but it won't survive if I'm Nidoking. So I was really hoping to get a Paris and have that pay off. Instead, it kind of backfires. The good news is that the encounters that I did get came with Nidorino's slightly shorter cry. It's shorter by about 0.6 seconds. But that is going to come up throughout the run, the fact that I did not kill that second Zubat. In some ways it will save time, in other ways it will add risk or cost me time. So a couple good fights here. It doesn't really matter what your attack is for the first fight, but I didn't get Supersonic, which can kill a run. I'm skipping splits here because I don't have Paris, so I'm going to be farther ahead than the run is actually on pace for, but I will split again when I get to Surge, and I'm just hoping to be sub 50 minutes at Surge. That will put this run on possible 149 pace. Nice critical there. In addition to having good attack, this Nido was pretty clutch with crits and good damage ranges throughout the run. Like this Coughing is a range even with good attack when you're level 17 and don't have a badge boost from Screech. So nice second range there. Normally I'm level 18 here, but since I didn't get full experience, I'm not. Now I'm going to be walking a very specific path here. The reason for that is that some tiles after you fight this super nerd cannot generate encounters. So it's hard to explain exactly how that works just through audio commentary. So if you just watch the path that I took, which includes talking to the guy from below, there will be 3 fewer tiles you'll get encounters on than if you talk to him, if you just walked up to him from the side and then like just took a turn fewer times after fighting the guy and getting the fossil. Like you have to do that turn so that you're directly above where he got the dome fossil. There are just some tiles that don't generate encounters, and you want to be walking on those as much as possible. And it also involves the 3-step rule, where you can't get an encounter 3 steps after fighting a trainer or having gotten an encounter. So I'm fighting that guy earlier because I can't get an encounter in the 3 steps after the fight, and then that like goes into the series of encounterless tiles. And that was found by Jif Vexen, who hasn't been in my stream much lately, but he or she, I'm not exactly sure, was very helpful in thinking of some strats a while back. So yeah, I don't have Paris, which makes this run not particularly likely to finish, but it still has a chance. Oddish is so very luck-based. There is a DSUM for it, but generally it's like if you get a first encounter Oddish, you're okay. Otherwise, the run is likely to lose a lot of time to it. Now I'm level 17 for this Pidgeotto, which means it's a bit riskier. Like I'm not going to 2-shot it if I get a critical, but I am likely to 3-shot it because of my good attack. If you have 14 or 15 DV attack, even though you're under-leveled, you're likely to 3-shot it, so it's not too bad to not get experience in Mount Moon when you have this high attack. Now normally when you're level 18 for Pidgeotto, even if you have bad attack, it's an easy 3-shot. And that's just the way that damage works in this game and future generation games. You get boosts to how much damage you do when you're at levels that end in 0, 3, 5, and 8. So at level 18, independent of my attack boost, I'm going to do more damage than I did at level 17. So the fact that I'm 19 for this Bulbasaur, as opposed to 18 if I had gotten no experience in Mount Moon, matters very little. But once I get to 20, I'm going to be dealing more damage. And I have a very good fight there, despite taking all of that damage from Pidgeotto and Rattata. I didn't get Sand Attack by the Pidgeotto, that's really important, because Sand Attack can force you to have to switch out and sacrifice one of your slaves, which would be Pidgey, and Pidgey is going to be valuable a bit later in this run. So coming up, you're going to see why good attack and good speed is really good for the early game. If I had bad attack, I might be in really bad position and missing damage ranges, taking damage, having to heal, having to use all my potions, having to take more risks and have my items be messed up for later. But like this Weedle, pretty unlucky to miss that. I think it's 83% to one-shot it, but it can't hit me. I don't heal before this fight because Usually the most damage I expect to take is like a gust and a quick attack, or 2 quick attacks, and they each do 6 damage. So if I get like a gust and then a crit quick attack, I die, but that's very unlikely. If anything goes really wrong, I'll just heal. Like there, I got a crit quick attack. So if he quick attacks again and it doesn't crit, or if it crits, then I'm dead. In the past, I would like risk this situation because I could stay in red bar, and then with 5 HP I'd be fine for this Nidoran, and I'd be fine for upcoming Pokemon. But I've learned as I run this game that it's better to postpone major risks till later in the game when you know more, when you're more certain that those risks are worth it to get the time that you want. So I knew I could afford to heal there and still have a chance at being on the pace that I wanted. It wasn't a major time loss. Later in the run, I'll have to take some risks because it's necessary to make up time to get 149. Now here's a strat found by Narm02 that I've started doing in my runs in certain cases, where I rare candy twice here. Now when you kill some encounters in Mount Moon, but not enough to get Thrash before the 5th trainer here that has Mankey, you're level 20 for this Rattata, and you can rare candy twice. That's going to help me hit this Ekans range. In fact, it goes from being 59% likely to kill it to 100%. And that's nice because it has Wrap, which can waste a lot of time. This Zubat with my attack was guaranteed regardless. But then for this next fight, I'm going to be more likely to one-hit the Nidoran female with a critical. And also just having higher HP for these fights means I'll be less likely to potion, and I do want to save potions for later in the run. The downsides of rare candying early are pretty minimal. Like, you do have slightly less experience like at Misty and later on, but you're always going to have enough to be level 25 for Starmie and to be the necessary levels for certain other important fights. It's really just a matter of whether getting thrashed slightly later, which is going to be in the middle of the next fight rather than before it, is worth it. So like this fight is a really good example of how this strat can work. I'm going to be able to take a Karate Chop from Mankey that I wouldn't necessarily be able to take at level 20 because I have bad defense. I don't have Thrash, so I have to Horn Attack. And then with a little bit more damage, I can definitely Poison Sting that. Poison Sting has a faster animation than Horn Attack by about 0.8 seconds. So just time by using that strat. It also worked out really nicely. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Like being 22 for level 22 for this Ekans, not having Thrash, level 15 Ekans coming up, it is a damage range that I'm going to hit. Bumpful, I rare candied after the second trainer on Nugget Bridge because I was level 20, but wasn't going to be level 23 before the Mankey. So yeah, getting level 23 mid-fight, normally you want to like check your stats at 23, which is easy to do when you're outside of a fight. They just like stay up on the screen as you're learning Thrash. Here they just appear for a sec. I glance at them briefly and I see that my defense is going to be 2 DV, my special DV is 9, so the higher of the ones that I have listed right now, and that's really good. And then I Horn Attack that Zubat instead of thrashing it because Thrash has a long startup animation. It only gets fast when you're using it on multiple Pokemon. So now this fight. You're going in to face a Machop and a Geodude with Thrash. You can see how that wouldn't go well, especially when Geodude has Defense Curl. And Thrash gets you confused after 3 or 4 turns. This fight was previously a pretty big run killer, like over the summer, because you would just stay in if you got confused and hurt yourself and die if you didn't get lucky. So if I don't 4-turn here, I could hurt myself in confusion. I would do 14 or 15 damage. He could kill me with Tackle if I didn't kill myself in confusion. But now we do this. We switch out to Squirtle. We lose some experience, and that is going to have an effect later in the run. But considering if I had tried to fight through, it would have been 50-50 to lose the run. Much better to just switch in Squirtle. It's a very quick kill. you're still level 25 for Starmie even after doing the early rare candy strats. So that is a huge run saver in this run and in some others. And then I pick up that elixir there because of item management. Let me explain a bit about kind of the routing that I've done with item management in this game. The general idea is that you want your most important, most used items to be near the top of your inventory. And if they don't end up that way naturally, like if you buy an item or pick up an item when you have a bunch of items above it, you want to swap that item toward the top. And so I've done a lot of routing and just looking at ways to neatly do that. One way is if you fight that hiker, which you don't do if you pick up Water Gun, you fight the guy with Onyx below him. You can pick up that elixir and it goes into slot 4. And that's actually the most optimal slot for elixirs to be during the run. You want slot 1 to be your bike when I get that, slot 2 to be super repel, slot 3 to be X accuracy, slot 5 and 6 can be your other X items, but elixirs are used more frequently than items below it, so just getting it there, I don't have to swap an item with the elixirs that I get later. Just all the elixirs that I will get later on will just go into slot 4. Really convenient, and you'll see how it saves time on some menus late in the game. I'll explain a bit about DVs. You see in the bottom left, I've now filled out the DV chart, so I've got 9 HP, 15 attack, 2 defense, 14 speed, 9 special. The 9 special is going to be pretty important in that it's going to allow me to one-shot Erica's Pokemon with Ice Beam at 8 DV. A Victory Bell would be a range. So I can just do the standard strat of fighting the gym leaders in a normal order. I don't have to fight fight Erica later or use Earthquake on Victory Bell, which would mess up my PP. I'll explain that more later, but it's much better to have 9 DV special than 8. It also helps ensure a range or 2. Definitely a lot better to have 9 than like 5 DV. That could have been really bad in this run, so great DVs on this Nido. The defense sucks, and if you've been in my stream, you've heard me say time and time again, bad defense kills runs, good defense saves runs. Well, sometimes you just get lucky, or you just don't encounter situations where your defense comes into play. I mean, it does come into play in that, you know, I took more damage on Nugget Bridge. Maybe I'd only have to heal once if I had better defense, but you can complete really good runs with bad defense, whereas you can't with bad attack, and rarely can with bad speed. So I healed twice rather than healing to full for Misty, and that's number one because the standard Misty fight means you, when you have good speed, involves getting hit once by either Bubble Beam or Water Gun. If she criticals you with Bubble Beam, it's generally really bad, even if you're close to full. So when I'm going for a really good time, like 149, I'll risk this against Misty, where I die to a crit Bubble Beam, but I can survive a crit Water Gun. The other risk is getting a speed fall from Bubble Beam. So what I'm hoping is that she just attacks me once and I get close to red bar. The other thing is I want to preserve my potions for later so that I don't run out. Potions, as I said, are very valuable for the late game, and if you run out, it messes up your item management. Yeah, because I didn't get experience in Mount Moon, I'm 24 for Staryu. Normally you're 25, but with my good attack, it's not even a range. And then I am just barely 25 for Starmie, which gives me that level boost. I get X Defend, which sometimes can be really nice if you critical through it. Actually, it was nice here that I didn't crit through it because I got this Bubble Beam. That puts me closer to red bar. Unfortunately, I don't get 4-turn Thrash, so instead of leaving the run up to a 50-50 risk, I just sacrifice Pidgey, and now I'm faster than Starmie. I can just come in. Starmie's at very low HP, finish it with the faster Horn Attack, and we're good to go. This Misty time is pretty good, actually, despite the switching out. You know, switch out strats can be pretty fast sometimes. Sub 40 Misty is like the gold standard, but remember, I don't have Paris, so I have to hunt for an Oddish. Amoeba, I think I saw a question about whether my special was good enough. It was exactly good enough. I got everything I needed out of my special. There's a few places where having bad special means you have to, like I have to use Rock Slide against the Golbat in the tower rather than Thunderbolt, because Thunderbolt is not a good enough range, and that's just slower animation time. But I didn't have to risk anything. My special was just good enough to avoid taking risks or taking different routes that are slower. Again, really good attack means that Machop is not a range. Sometimes you'll have bad attack and get red barred from Misty and then die to the Machop by missing the range because it uses Karate Chop, which usually criticals. So here's where I pulled up that Oddish DSUM chart, which is basically if I don't get an Oddish first encounter, be walking in and out of the grass in specific patterns to try and walk in when an Oddish is going to appear during the cycle. I'm really hoping I don't have to do that because that can get really messy. I'm actually going to take a specific movement path through this grass even before I get a first encounter. And the reason I do that is, so like I'm going to turn right there rather than one to the left in case I do get an Oddish on that specific tile. I'm not like farther to the left than I want to be when I would just be like walking to avoid the grass after getting Oddish. I get Oddish on the last tile before the two trainers, so that's great. Oddish is 35%, but you can be here forever. Hunting for Oddish, because the encounter rate is low, DSUM isn't necessarily going to be helpful. And then I tackle Oddish rather than Poison Sting. I deleted Poison Sting earlier. It's a pretty close call. Like if you critical like a level 13 or sometimes a level 15 Oddish with tackle, it can die and then you can be back to searching for Oddish, but generally the higher level Oddishes will actually survive a critical. And then you're doing more damage and thus having a better chance of catching it than if you had Poison Sting. Also, having Oddish at low HP means that if you need to sacrifice it later because you get sand attacked or confused, it's going to die faster, so that worked out really well. I actually lost very little time because of getting Oddish as opposed to Paris. I'm going to lose a bit of time later because menuing isn't quite as optimal with Oddish, but for the most part, the time loss I don't have to worry about anymore. Whatever I see on the Surge Split is I'm gonna be able to tell my pace from that. So I get 2 quick attacks from the Pidgeys. Nice thing is I'm in red bar, bad thing is I'm gonna have to heal for the rival on the boat. If I get a critical quick attack from this Raticate, I'll survive at 1 or 2 HP, so I don't need to heal before this fight, even though Raticate has a high crit rate. There's actually a strat that you can do if you have this exact HP, like 13 HP, where you fight this guy first, you go into the grass, risk a pretty low chance of an encounter, and fight this guy to preserve red bar, and then you heal before the Pidgey fight, because the Pidgeys can kill you from 13 if you get a critical, and then another quick attack, or just 3 quick attacks. Now I'm taking the Vermilion Mart before the boat here, simply because of item management. Basically, I want my super potions in my menu to fall directly below my 3rd X item. So I'm going to have elixirs in slot 4, and then X special and speed in 5 and 6. Now if I had taken the Mart after the SSN, that in and of itself wouldn't be slower, but then I would have an extra item above my super potion. It would be HM01, which is not a big deal, and in fact sometimes it can work out if like you run out of potions or use your full restore. But it works out well on this run. Well, I don't use super potions in this run, but it looks nice. And it also, I'm getting rid of items in the Mart before I'm teaching Bubble Beam before this next fight, so it's going to be slightly less scrolling before the next fight. It's always a very close case as to when to take the Mart and whether to teach Bubble Beam, because you don't strictly need Bubble Beam for this next fight, but it ends up working out here in kind of a weird way. Another thing I consider when deciding whether to take the Mart before or after the boat is whether I'll be swapping the rare candies that I get later in the run. It's actually better to swap your rare candies up than to scroll down because you usually use them twice. And as a general rule, if you use an item twice, it's better to swap it up if it's far down in the menu than to scroll down. But unfortunately, because I have such good stats, I don't need to get the PP up later in the run, so I don't have as many menus as I'd need to swap the rare candies in addition to my X items. So I just plan to not swap rare candies, and then I'll have my 2 X items above Super Potion. Alright, this fight, really intense, and I'm really happy with how I played it. 26 HP is good, but if you get critical in this fight, it can hurt, so I'm risking a crit Hyper Fang right here because I want to get damaged by this Raticate. Fortunately, with Hyper Fang, he does too much. I need to heal, otherwise he could kill with Quick Attack. The Ivysaur could kill with Vine Whip. Criticals again, I'm okay, but then he criticals again. I'm going to have to heal again. Normally, I would start thrashing right after this, but if I did that, I'd be locked in and I would die to Vine Whip. So I'm going to do a backup strat, kill Kadabra because it has terrible defense with Horn Attack, and then heal on Ivysaur, and I'll be fine. It sucks that I have to use all these potions, but I still have 1 left, and I'm in red bar. Hopefully I get hit again so that I'm deeper in red bar. I can keep it. And there we go. So that worked out really well. Obviously it could have looked a lot worse if I had gotten critical, but I did want to Bubble Beam the Raticate rather than just start Thrash and go for a 4-turn and switch out if I don't get it, because there was a decent chance I landed or ended the fight at 21 HP if I had Thrashed, not gotten Quick Attack from Raticate and then gotten Leech Seed from Ivysaur or criticaled it. And 21 HP is really bad for getting red bar for the next section. I want to be in red bar for Surge, ideally, but it's okay to be like at 25 HP because his lead Voltorb has Sonic Boom. Does 20 damage, puts me at a good red bar. I want to be at around 7 or 8 HP entering Surge or after Voltorb. So I've got 6 now, and that's pretty good. Now this is fairly new, as in I didn't see people doing this before. I started doing it over the summer in taking red bar into Surge, and then what I'm going to do is Thrash the lead Voltorb. Sometimes you can enter Surge in red bar and Horn Attack it, and you'll kill with a critical, or it'll just like use Screech or Tackle Miss, Sonic Boom Miss, but that's really risky. With good attack, especially 15 DV attack, using Thrash, it's a 74% range to get Voltorb. And then if you 4-turn, you just sweep the fight, you don't have to switch out. Or if you critical the Raichu. So Thrash can work out really well against Surge. And worst case, other than missing the damage range and dying, which is unlikely, is that you do get confused on Raichu and you have to switch out. But because I have red bar for this whole time, I end up basically saving the time that I could lose from having to switch out. So it's especially worth it with 15 DV attack because that's the only DV in which you get that 74% range. It goes down to 66 and then 57, and then you just don't want to be doing it. So I get second try cans right here. Not terrible for second try. It's a little bit worse than my PB. And I'm starting Surge about the time that I split in my PB, so I'll be almost a minute behind, but there's a lot of time to make up later, as you'll see. Another important note here, if I get this Thrash range, which I do, 74% including criticals, then I don't level up before Pikachu because I didn't get Mount Moon experience. That means that if he had used Quick Attack and criticaled, I would have died. So you really do want to get Mount Moon experience, not just because of early Thrash, but because the level ups work out a lot safer. Here I do have to switch out because I didn't get the 4-turn, but Raichu has good AI, or Surge, all of his Pokemon have good AI, so he'll use the electric move to kill Squirtle. This is pretty fast. I can finish it with Bubble Beam because I did so much damage with Thrash, and Bubble Beam has a faster animation than Horn Attack. Now I could have used a potion and not have to switch out there. Might have been slightly faster, but number one, I only had 1 potion, so if I just kept hitting myself, I was in trouble. And number 2, that might have taken me out of red bar, and Having red bar after surge can be a huge run saver. You can take red bar all the way up until the healing pad in lavender, and that saves about a minute, so that's what I'm going to attempt to do here. It's a pretty standard strat. I believe Worcester was the one who started doing that at first. It doesn't work that well if you have bad stats, and if you have a lead and you're not at good HP after surge, it's generally good to not force it, but when you're going for 149 or when you're behind and you have good stats, it's always a good idea. So I'm really glad that I set it up the way I did for surge to have red bar. I don't have to try to get into red bar on the fly split as you sometimes do. I just need to get decent luck. So while I'm going through this section, I'm going to explain a bit about the new menuing in this game. I mean, what you're going to see here is me abusing Thrash and then my special moves to basically one-shot everything from here until Celadon. I do need to rely on getting a 4-turn Thrash in the next fight, which I'll address briefly. But for now, let me address this menuing. You'll see that I was pretty quickly able to swap my bike up while also starting to teach this TM here. And that's a technique called fast scrolling. Fast scrolling is where you're holding directional input, usually down, through a menu. So like I start holding down as I'm going from Pokemon to item, and then I just keep holding down as I'm swapping my item with bike. What runners had done in the past before they knew about this is press down on 2 separate occasions. Like they press down to get to item and then let go and then press down again, and that would create a pause at the top of the menu. So it's about 0.5 seconds better, and it's also just easier to execute a fast scroll. And I've made a video on that, which is in my info section on Twitch. It's probably better to watch that than to explain it in this run. But it's a really big time saver, and it's a really easy way to menu. And it's something that I didn't do over the summer. I didn't know about that when I got my 150, so I've been able to improve the menus a lot since then. And some others like Viscova contributed to menuing optimizations. I got the 4-turn Thrash there. If I hadn't gotten it, I would have switched out to Oddish and then switched back in. Lost a bit of experience, but it would have only cost like 15-20 seconds. But at this point, I really need the full time save here to be I mean, I don't need it to get 149, but I am behind, so I would like to get the full-time save. One nice benefit to not getting experience in Mount Moon is you see that I leveled up there and I just skipped the jingle for leveling up. If you get experience, then you typically level up at the end of the 4-turn Thrash fight, and you don't skip red bar level ups when they happen at the end of fights in this game. You do in yellow, for some reason not in this game, so the red bar level ups work out a lot better when you don't get Mount Moon experience, and that's going to come into play a bit later. Now I repel before entering Rock Tunnel because the game buffers the start input when you do it while moving, as opposed to if you just do it in a stationary position, like when I entered Rock Tunnel, you just have to mash to do it. So basically I began holding start as I was moving on the bike to the tile I wanted to repel on. I just started holding the start button. I didn't have to time it or mash it, and I was able to do that frame perfectly. If I had used it upon entering the tunnel, pretty sure that I would have lost frames by having to mash. So throughout the run, when I need to open the menu, I'll do it while I'm moving rather than like immediately after a fight or after transitioning between areas. This Slowpoke is a range if you have bottom half of special DVs, so it was really nice that I saw that I had 9. Extra step there because in Rock Tunnel, because of the fact that it's dark, or it's supposed to be dark in here. I guess you can still see everything you need in here, but it's like not loading every single sprite, every single pixel the way it does like in the overworld. There isn't lag after a fight, so like you start moving very quickly after a fight. And it's difficult to time that. Like you don't have the opportunity to see yourself on the map before you like start moving. So that was why I made that little mistake there. So far I've made around 1.5 mistakes in this second of mistakes in this run, which is really good. Although the more execution stuff, heavy stuff, is going to happen later. I got through the one difficult part of Rock Tunnel, which was the level 22 Oddish. If you get experience, you're level 30, and that's a guaranteed one-shot on good attack, but I was level 29, so it was a 55% range, and it can put you to sleep or paralyze you and end the run, so I was lucky there. Did get a nice mid-fight red bar level up, though. Yeah, it was, I've made like 3 mistakes. Like, I went back and counted them. I've made 3 mistakes so far, and total cost of 1.2 seconds. That's really good. So, like, not only is this run starting to get on good pace because of red bar, but I have played very well. But I've had a lot of runs that have played well to this point. As I said, it gets a lot harder when you start swapping items, having menus that change based on your stats, your strategy. And there are some really difficult fights in terms of strategy coming up, so I'll be explaining those. So there you see, I'm still in red bar, but there's a bit of a pause at the end of the fight as it plays the jingle. So that rock tunnel went almost perfectly. I got some useless criticals, like you don't need to critical a Geodude with Bubble Beam, but I'm on track to save about 40 seconds on this split, because I've had red bar all the way and I didn't have to switch out or deal with missed damage ranges. One nice thing about having really good special, which I don't quite have, is that this Growlithe will always die to a Bubble Beam. But because I have such good attack, it's very likely to die with Thrash, and Thrash is slightly faster than Bubble Beam once you get into the when it's used more than once. The quick attack I got there is actually fine. 19 HP was potentially a bit awkward because I could come out of red bar on the next fight. It's a bit safer, so it didn't mind the quick attack. It might have been slightly faster to not get it. Strategy I'm going to use for the next fight is pretty straightforward now, and that fight's going to come up in about 4 minutes in the tower against my rival. So back to menuing for a second before I go shopping. I'm getting on my bike really quickly, like faster than I've done before, because what you can actually do, rather than mashing A to get on your bike, is you just start holding A to open up your inventory, and then keep holding A for safety, but then hold B. Holding B will actually get you on your bike, and that's frame perfect. Like, you can just start holding B before the input actually happens, and as long as you're holding B when the input happens, you get on the first possible frame. Now I'm taking a different route through the mart than I did in my original 150, and then different route than people used until the fall. One of my regular viewers, Enter, came up with this new mart order where you start on the 2nd floor, go up to the 4th floor and then the roof, and then go down to the 5th floor, and then take the elevator down to 1F. This is about 1.5 seconds faster, and the menuing, although it's different because of the order in which you buy the items, it ends up being about the same. So it's just like a flat 1.5 second save to do the mart in this order, which is pretty huge. That was a pretty big discovery. That, along with the encounterless tiles in Mount Moon, may still be like the biggest discoveries in the past 6 months, despite all the little strat improvements that I've made and other people have made. Just a flat time save, that's really huge. Previous shopping, I think it went 4th floor first, and then up to 6, and then down to 5 and 2, and you would just be using the stairs the whole time. I'll talk more about why I bought the number of X items I did in a little bit as it comes up, but I bought 1 fewer X accuracy than I normally do here because I wanted extra X specials, also because I bought 9 potions at the beginning. It would have been difficult to afford 11 X acts, they cost so much. I would have had to buy only 3 X specials, and that would really limit me as far as red bar manipulation later in the run. 6 is probably going to be too much, like for any run, but that's how much money I had. Like 5 would have been fine. But I don't need more than 4x speeds, so I just put the extra money into X specials. Looking back, probably should have bought 10 potions, but it ended up working out to buy 9. So there's a 38-second save simply because of red bar. In my PB, I had bad special, and I didn't get red bar off Surge, or before Surge, so I wasn't in red bar for the fly split at all. You see how important red bar is in this game to be able to save more than 30 seconds over the course of a split. It is riskier though, so it can easily kill you, and don't do it in races. You can still beat the game just fine without red bar, just when you're going for these super optimized times. You want to be getting it when there's an opportunity. That was a really good menu, by the way. I practiced just like timing how far you need to go down, and just practice that menu a lot because it's one of the bigger menus in the game, but I also use a new technique there that I think I will be explaining in the future in a video. But basically, it's a similar concept to like holding B to get on your bike. You have cool things in this game, like you can hold B to prevent yourself from double inputting. So basically I was holding B and then mashing A to use a super repel to prevent myself from going down too far. Anyway, this fight, I Thunderbolt the Pidgeotto as opposed to setting up with an X accuracy on it. The reason that I do this for this particular run is kind of difficult to explain. By the way, I would have died to a critical quick attack or a critical bite, most likely. Basically, you can set up on either Pidgeotto or Growlithe, and if they critical, you're generally either dead or close to dead. If Pidgeotto quick attacks and Growlithe attacks you, sometimes you have to heal to prevent yourself from dying on Growlithe. And then Pidgeotto, if you set up on it, then it can attack you the first turn and then quick attack you. So the reason that I set up on Pidgeotto is, or set up on Growlithe rather than Pidgeotto, is that if I had set up on Pidgeotto, I would have had a 50% chance of being put into range to die to quick attack because it has Gust and quick attack and then 2 other moves. A 25% chance of dying isn't worth it for this run now that it's gotten pretty good. So I would have had to heal. Like, that would have been the correct play to heal in that situation. I would have been forced into it, and then I would have run out of potions, which sucks for the Elite Four, and it means I have to pick up an extra item to correct my item management. By the way, these Ghastlies can kill you if you miss a Rock Slide. 90% to hit. They have Nightshade, Confuse Ray, and Lick, which can paralyze. So once I hit this Rock Slide, I'm like, alright, this could be the run, because the next 10 to 15 minutes are pretty free. Anyway, by using Thunderbolt to just clear Pidgeotto right away, I'm less likely to be put in that situation where I have to heal. It's only 25% that I take damage, so 25% percentage points less likely to use the potion. Yeah, Rock Slide is the best strat there. Your alternative is to use Thunderbolt twice, or teach Ice Beam, I guess. Go for the freeze. Go for the crit. But again, they've got Confuse Ray, Nightshade, and Lick. And for the first one, you want to be in red bar. So you can see, like, you miss, or if you went for a 2-shot, this could go really bad. Thankfully, I hit through that confusion. That you can get absolutely wrecked here. Start hitting yourself, start taking damage from Nightshade, Lick paralysis, and you're slower. You have to use a full restore. You have to pick up a full restore later to make up for that. It can get really bad. So it's one of the least optimal parts of this run to get Rock Slide, but you have to do it because Nidoking for some reason doesn't learn Dig. With good special, they do die to crit, Gunner. Like, I was looking into that. With bad special, I think it's a range. With bad special, a lot of stuff is a range. Alright, I'll briefly explain this if you're new to speedrunning, new to Pokemon speedrunning, you might be wondering, why did I not get the Silph Scope before fighting this guy? Well, the Pokédoll allows you to escape from a wild encounter, and this is a wild encounter, so as a community, the English Pokemon speedrunning community has decided it's allowed to use the Pokédoll to escape from that in a glitchless run. Japanese community doesn't allow it. In the end, it doesn't really matter as long as the community just follows the same set of rules. So we don't get the Silph Scope, we just use the Pokédoll. Here's that fight I was mentioning earlier. I don't have good enough special to Thunderbolt the Golbat here. It would only be like a 60% range, whereas Rock Slide is guaranteed. I just have to hit it. Having really good special can help in a lot of areas, but basically if you're in the top half of special, you're in good shape to not lose the run because of it. Oh, and I forgot to mention the Pidgeotto Thunderbolt strat. I believe what I heard was that J-Pain, who was in the chat earlier, I'm not sure if he is now, I heard that he came up with that strat, so that's definitely been a run saver for me and a lot of other people, so thanks for that. I get the Smog Miss here. I'm X-acking because Coughing's got high defense. Drowsy would survive Thrash. You just you don't want to try to like get a critical here. You just Horn Drill's really fast, and there's just a bit of RNG on the Coughing, and that the Smog animation is really long. So getting a miss there saves like 2 seconds. For this fight, having good attack is going to make it slightly faster, because I can start my Thrash against this Rattata, assuming that I will get the Thrash damage range on Raticate, and I won't have to rely on a 4-turn. Raticate range is at 94%, including crits, so you'd have to get very unlucky to get into trouble in this fight. And again, you see with Thrash, it's really fast. You don't have to reselect a move, it's just you're thrashing about. So you save the frames from using Thunderbolt on the Rattata. So the only thing that went wrong in that split, like the only thing, was I missed a Rock Slide and got Confuse Ray, but I didn't hurt myself in Confusion, so I'm saving 15 seconds here. Like the maximum time save is like 20, 22 seconds. So suddenly I'm about ahead of PB pace, and I've got about as good of a Nido as on PB. And this next section of the game is where I can save even more time by using improved strats. The red bar that I just saved 53 seconds with, that wasn't so much a new strat as I just had a better Nido for it, and I committed to it a little bit more than I've done before. But in this next section, you're going to see a lot of the new strats that I've been working on and that I've been practicing. First thing is just another quick menuing optimization. This wasn't, I didn't come up with this, but I've maybe made it a little more widely used. Is you saw how quickly I was able to use a Super Repel and get on the bike after exiting Celadon, the Celadon Center. That's another mechanic involving fast scrolling, where if you're just holding down and then you mash A, you can use the item that's in slot 2. And then if you start holding up and mashing A, you'll just get on your bike. You don't have to worry about using a Super Repel again. Again, if you're interested in that, check out my fast scrolling tutorial. And if you're a runner, I recommend practicing that, because once you get it, it saves a lot of time and it's not too difficult. And then you see me swapping up the first of my X Special and X Speed right there. One of the major optimizations in the late game is not going to apply in this run. I just passed a PP up that, with bad attack, I would use on Horn Drill, so that I could use Horn Drill on more Pokemon and rely less on damage ranges, specifically with Earthquake. Getting and using the PP up takes about 10 seconds, but using Horn Drill is really fast, so each time you use it, you save about a second. And obviously, if there are damage ranges involved that you can just forego with using Horn Drill, it's a lot safer as well. So if you have 0 to 10 dB attack, you just get the PP up, and it works out really nicely at the expense of 10 seconds with the PP management. And I've detailed that in a chart I made on how to approach the late game, but for this run, it's like my Nido's so good that the 10 seconds isn't worth it. And then you saw I was able to quickly use the Super Repel and scroll down to Ice Beam by using fast scrolling there. And in the Safari Zone, I'm again just gonna quickly get on my bike. Every time I get on my bike, I'm doing this basically. Hold A when I'm on the main menu to access my inventory, and then hold B to get on the bike. It's really cool. There's a faster way to do that menu there, but it's kind of awkward and I haven't practiced it enough, so I didn't do that. Gotta give a lot of credit to Visciv again for #1 helping me find some menuing optimizations and coming up with some of his own. And then also for this is when I was doing Emerald runs, I was just overly obsessed with being perfect with my movement and hitting optional trainers because I didn't want to bonk, and he just was like, just tone it down. It's okay if you bonk. It's okay if you take it slow, if you don't do the absolute perfect movement. And it just sort of hit me that, I'm just going to have a lot better time in getting good runs if I just slow down and do what's easier, not necessarily what's perfect. So here in the Safari Zone, I do perfect movement because I used an older, more familiar, slightly easier menu. Shout out to Kizaron for his excellence at Battle Network 2. Kizaron's one of my mods, and also a really good Pokemon runner and Battle Network runner. Kizaron's come up with some good strats too, just haven't come up in this run. Anyway, back to the run. Here's where it gets really intense. So if you ask a question in chat, I might miss it and you can just ask it again later or at the end of the run. First, briefly, I take a detour here to pick up Earthquake. It takes about a minute to get Earthquake, but it's almost entirely necessary. Like, you could go without it and you'd be risking fights such as Sabrina and a few in Koga's gym, in which you'd have to set up with an X accuracy. It would be faster to skip Earthquake, most likely, if it weren't for the fact that there's a rare candy conveniently located next to Earthquake. So when I get that, it's going to make my life a lot easier to teach Earthquake over Thrash rather than relying too much on Horn Drill. And speaking of Horn Drill, in the past, runners would just thrash that Machoke fight because you want to save PP for Silph Rival and Giovanni. We figured out a couple of better ways to handle that situation now. #1 is you Thunderbolt the Gyarados when you're trying to get Red Bar off it, which I'll explain in a sec. And #2 is just get the PP up. So in this case, I'm going to plan to use an X special on Silph Rival, and so that I can Thunderbolt the Gyarados and also get Red Bar off the Gyarados. So here's where it gets really, really intense strategy-wise. And this is where the routing really pays off, to know what to do and know what the damage ranges are in this situation. This is a really pivotal part of this particular run because what ends up happening is like perfect luck, and the way I played it works out really well. Obviously, I'm trying to get Red Bar off a Gyarados using Hydro Pump. If it criticals, I'm dead. And then I'll be in Red Bar for a couple of other Pokemon that can kill me with criticals, or even just using the wrong move. So it's very risky, but if I take Red Bar from this next fight coming up, Silph Rival, until fighting Koga, I'm going to save like 40 seconds if it all goes well. And I mentioned using Horn Drill against that Machoke That's really helpful in this run for two reasons. Number one, it's just faster than using Thrash, and number two, it gives that Machoke only one turn, so it can't like attack me twice and put me at such low HP that it would be difficult to take a Hydro Pump or have to like heal for Hydro Pump, like use my full restore and then have more items than I want to have. So being at 103 HP, that's really good for this fight. The basic idea in this fight, you need to X accuracy and X speed to use Horn Drill against the Venusaur and be faster than Alakazam. Those things can kill you. But you can save a lot of time by using an X special, getting this red bar off Gyarados. Give a lot of credit to Worcester for just coming up with this basic concept, and then also the specific approach I kind of took from, well, I won't say him, but if you guys know another name that, another run that Worcester may or may not have done. He used this specific strat in this fight of using an X special on Pidgeot and then using the X speed on Gyarados. So once I've X specialed, I'm going to survive a Hydro Pump most likely. The range here is 88 to 104. It's not perfect because I could die or be at like really low HP. It works out nicely to be at 8 HP, although it's going to be risky coming up. It works out nicely because I'll keep this red bar if I don't die. Now the only reason I was able to use the X special on Pidgeot is that I was already faster than it. You need to have very good speed, 12 to 15 dB, to be faster than it without the X speed. If you're not faster than it, then Horn Drill doesn't work. The other nice thing, well really the reason that it mattered that I X specialed first was that if Pidgeot had used Quick Attack, then I wouldn't have been at high enough HP to take a Hydro Pump, right? But I would have already had the X special, so if I were to just heal or use another X special, it's the nice thing about buying X specials, then I could have taken it and then used the X speed on Growlithe. And Growlithe isn't too dangerous. Its only threat is like Takedown, has Ember, but what's that going to do through two X specials? It's pretty complicated. It's a really complex fight, Silph Rival, and you really need to know the damage ranges. There's probably an outcome that could have happened here that I would have played incorrectly just because there's so much variance with Quick Attack. But it worked out really nicely. The only problem is, you see I have bad defense, and I'm going to go into Giovanni at 15 HP. I'm not going to use my last potion because that would mess up my items, and I would possibly come out of red bar and have to get back in. I'm just going to go for it, and here's where I was asking for Kevin Turtles in chat and really nervous because I knew this was on me. If I died here, you know, it was a worthwhile risk, but at the same time it was, you know, it was a risk that it could have cost me the run. Basically, Nidorino can do four things. It can Horn Attack, it can Fury Attack, it can use Focus Energy, or Giovanni can use a Guard Spec. Fury Attack is fine as long as it doesn't critical or 4 or 5 turn, which it usually doesn't. It's like the first mistake I've made in a while, so I'll take it. I got Focus Energy, and I can save half a second by just holding B through Focus Energy, similar to how you can hold B through when a Pokemon uses Agility or Screech, move like that has a bit of extra text. So that was like 30% to die, if you count for criticals and the fact that Horn Attack was definitely killing. If I had good defense, it would have been a range. But yeah, now that I've gotten through that, I've got another big risk coming up, but I'm just, I'm pretty relieved because the risk that is coming up is basically I'm going to go into fighting a Hypno in red bar, and Hypno has Confusion, but it has 3 other moves, and you can critical it, and it ends up being like 23% to die to the Hypno, but that's pretty standard, and I'm not going to heal. Because if I get this time save, which basically means don't die to the Hypno, I'm going to be well ahead of the pace I need for 149, and I've been thinking about 149 pretty much ever since the middle of the fly split when I was in red bar and things were going well. My PP works out pretty nicely here. I have 5 for this fight, and then I'll Elixir. If Gyarados had missed Hydro Pump, I could have stalled for a turn, because I had an extra PP to get the Hydro Pump. Unfortunately, after that tense moment in Silph, I've got another really difficult decision to make here, and this is another really cool strat that really shows off how intricate this game is. Normally you use your rare candies after Koga because you intentionally died to Koga and then you revive yourself out of being fainted with the rare candies. But I'm going to use one here, not because it's necessary for this fight or the Koga fight, but because it means I have a little bit less HP when I'm revived out of being fainted after Koga. So I'm going to be able to keep red bar for a little bit longer after dying to Koga. Specifically, I'm going to keep it for the Lorelei fight and the start of the Bruno fight, which will save about 9 seconds, at the expense of a few seconds to scroll down, an extra time to use rare candy, and then it's a little bit riskier to have less HP after Koga, but generally, and you're going to see this, it's pretty amazing how Nidoking can just breeze through the last few gym leaders in red bar with almost no risk. And I got poison gas. Confusion, crit headbutt, and runs over. Although at that low HP, I might have sent in Squirtle to finish him off. It was a really high roll. I could have rare candied again to 41, but you generally don't kill Hypno unless you're up to level 43 and you can't get that high. Now, I was a little worried about when I used that rare candy, whether I would come out of red bar in this fight at level 41. Now, I get tackle from coughing here, and that means I'm definitely in, but if I had gotten a +4 to my HP, I would have come out of red bar for level 41. I actually get a +3, so it works out, but you never know with the experience that you get in the run affecting your level ups, whether you're going to get that +4, and my HP is decent. And I'm horn drilling on this fight, and that'll allow me to Earthquake Blaine, which is slightly faster than horn drilling. And now here's one of the fundamental strats that makes this route work. You're intentionally dying here so that you can get into red bar after the fight, because rare candies will actually revive you out of having 0 HP. And Weezing always uses self-destruct, or it'll just waste time with using an X attack. So you just wait for the self-destruct, and then you're guaranteed to have red bar for the late game, and that saves like a minute. I believe it was Extra Tricky and Montebank who came up with that, along with many other things that got this route going. But it's really picked up in 2014 and become the standard strat. You can sometimes, when you're in red bar already, just kill Weezing, but that requires a very specific HP. You generally want to go down to 0. So these next 20 minutes or so of this run are my favorite. I always enjoy this part of the run, even when it's really tense, because it's almost entirely routing and execution, and there's only one fight that's risky, and it's only like 12% to die. I'm using my rare candies here. I just needed to save 1, but it works out best to use 2 with using 1 before the Hypno, and now my Nidoking can go into battle, and as long as I don't take damage, I'm good. And it turns out that in this run and in a lot of runs, I'm going to defeat the next 10 trainers using only Nidoking without taking any damage. So that's 4 gym leaders and 2 Elite Four members, 2 gym minions, 3, and then Viridian Rival. No damage at all. And I'm just going to one-shot just about everything. This is one of the main reasons that Nido is better than Squirtle. We used Squirtle up until midway through 2013, and then we started to see Nidoran was faster. And then when this boom strat, dying to Weezing, came about, it became very clear that Nidoran was superior because of what it can do in this late game while being in red bar. Now for these next 20 minutes, it helps to have good stats, but you can actually make a bad Nidoran work, like with PP up strats on bad attack and just using Horn Drill when there might be an Earthquake range. Basically any Nidoran, except if you have like bad speed, is going to do really well in this late game, and it looks super clean. I'm up to like 3 or 4 seconds of mistakes now, which is really good. It's the best I've ever played. You see a little bonk there. A bit nervous, but I've been in this situation so many times before that I'm able to keep it together. There was an item ball before I repelled, like right before I repelled, that was a Carbos. You use that if you have bad speed. It's just a bit of a time loss, but that's unless you have really bad speed, those Carbos will just take care of the one main risk, which is Sabrina's Alakazam being faster than you. So you can just go straight through Sabrina despite not having a great speed DV. Now you see I'm able to just like mash, I'm already on my rare candies. That's a little menuing optimization that I did a while back where you teach strength in the Super Repel menu and then move your cursor down one. When your cursor is on cancel and then you pick up an item, then when you go back to the menu, it will be on that item that you last picked up. So I can just mash A rather than worrying about timing and input to get to rare candy, and then just make sure I don't use it on Squirtle. It works out even nicer when you pick up the Carbos, but it's kind of hard to explain that. It's those little menuing optimizations that make this game so awesome. And the menuing has just gotten better and better as more runners have picked up this game. You can't change the luck, so that's always going to be a factor, but this game is really worth playing when you see that there are slight little ways to save frames like that. So here it begins. Just gonna sweep through these gym leaders. Ice Beam's gonna take care of everything in this gym, and then Earthquake's gonna take care of everything against Blaine and Sabrina. And then Ice Beam and Earthquake is basically gonna clean up Giovanni's gym, and then I'll be using X Accuracy and Horn Trill in the 3 fights before Agatha. Agatha is when the RNG really returns to this run because, you know, Agatha likes to troll you and confuse you, put you to sleep, stuff that you just can't be in red bar for that. So pretty much a consistent time save between here and Agatha because of the improved routing that's been done since my 150. Like I expect to be about a minute 10, a minute 15 ahead entering Agatha, unless I like Gen 1 miss or make a mistake or get extremely unlucky on the one fight with RNG that's coming up in Giovanni's gym. I mentioned earlier, I was able to Ice Beam Erica's Pokemon because of 9 DV special. If I had 8 DV, then what I would have done is fought Blaine first, so just flown straight here from after the mansion, and then fought Sabrina, and because of my good speed, I could have done Sabrina a level earlier and still been faster than Alakazam without a Carbos, and then fought Erica. I'd be a higher level for Erica, but more importantly, I would have the special badge boost that you get from defeating Blaine. So even on 0 DV special, I would be able to one-shot Erica's Pokemon with Ice Beam if I used that strat, but it only works if you have 12 to 15 DV speed. And the reason you want to Ice Beam is, number one, you really want to conserve Earthquake PP because you're using that more. And number two, Ice Beam is a faster animation by about 2 seconds overall on the fight. As I'm just answering these questions here, trying not to answer any incorrectly and fight a trainer, I'll explain a strat that I was considering for this run that's actually, it's a pretty cool strat, but it's very specific. Similar to how I can fight Sabrina at 1 level earlier if I need to do Erica later. If I have really good speed, like 14 or 15 DV speed, I can just not get the rare candies in Cinnabar Mansion, and then fight Sabrina at 2 levels earlier, and I'll just barely be faster than Alakazam. That saves about 20 seconds, and then there's some other changes to the late game that make it slightly riskier. It's actually better to do that stat with average attack than it is with this attack, because you're already picking up the PP up with average attack, and with this skip rare candy strat, which I call the risky strat, you need to pick up the PP up, because being under-leveled does force you to use more Horn Drill PP, such as on the champion. There's like no way to reliably win that fight without having 6 Horn Drills for all of his Pokemon. But again, with this good attack, Earthquake ranges such as this Arcanine, and then in Giovanni's gym, there's a fight where it really helps to have good attack. And if you don't have good attack, you have to use an X accuracy to reduce your chance of dying. So I was considering it in this run, but I'm glad I didn't, because this Nidoran is so good for the late game with having decent special attack and speed that, considering I was so far ahead, or at the time when I needed to commit to the strat, like when I buy X items, I was already pretty much even, and I knew I could save more time. One thing I love about the late game is that your PP management, you're able to make it work out perfectly with proper routing. So I'm going to have 4 Earthquake PP for this fight. Now if I'm Gen 1 miss, you have a 1 in 256 chance of missing moves that are supposed to be 100% accurate because of a programming bug, then it can be really bad. Like, I'll probably just die. Like, if I miss this Kadabra, he always attacks me, run over. But it's pretty unlikely. It's happened before to just about any red runner, but what can you do about it? You can X accuracy, that skips the accuracy check, but don't want to do that here. If you're slower than Alakazam with like really bad speed here, you have to set up on Mr. Mime, and that can kill you. But 90+% of Nidos you'll take to this point will have no issue with Sabrina. So you see that I'm having to go down 3 slots to use Dig, or go down 2 to slot 3 in Squirtle's list of HM moves. That's one way that it's better to have Paris, because if you have Paris, you just teach Paris Dig and it's only down 1. Also, you see there that the value of having Elixir in slot 4, like I need to Elixir there so that I have Earthquake PP for these next few fights. I can just go down to Elixir and then right up to Bike on the same menu. I don't have to like scroll all the way down to like slot 10 and then all the way up. When we had Elixir down in like slot 10, it would actually be faster to open up a separate menu so you don't have to scroll all the way up to Bike. So it basically saves a menu to have Elixirs in slot 4 here, plus the other times when you're using it and it's higher up. It's less scrolling. But yeah, as I was saying about Squirtle versus Paris having Dig, just a little bit better menuing, and also Squirtle has to overwrite a move to learn Surf when it has Dig, because it's just an extra move, whereas Paris, you don't have that problem. Now here's that fight I was talking about where there's slight risk. These are 57% ranges on the Machoke. You only go straight for Earthquake with good attack. If you have okay attack, you can X special and get the badge boost. I actually do get a badge boost there from the Leer. And so that's going to allow me to one-shot this last Machoke. This is not a range at all. And then if you have 0 to 10 dB attack, you just X accuracy, and with the PP up, that works out really well. But the straight-up Earthquake strat has saved me many times because there's a chance you just don't get hit. And then if the first Machoke lives, if it uses either Leer or Focus Energy, or if Leer works, or if it uses Focus Energy, then the second Machoke is free. The reason that Focus Energy makes the fight free is that there's a bug in this game where Focus Energy, if the Pokemon using it is slower, then that Pokemon can no longer critical hit. If they're faster, then Focus Energy does nothing. So Machoke, being slower than me, by using Focus Energy, it would prevent itself from criticaling with Karate Chop or Low Kick, and Karate Chop is what kills you in that fight if it uses it, because it has a 70% chance of criticaling. I've never actually used that backup strat, but it's one reason that just going in with Earthquake can be really helpful, because you can just set up on that turn after it uses Focus Energy to ensure that you'll one-shot the last Machoke. Here's an interesting fight. If you watch my 150 run, I'm just an idiot here. I just go into this fight with 12 HP, and I set up on the Rhyhorn, and it can kill me with Stomp or Fury Attack. I did that because my PP management was not very good back then. I thought I needed to save Earthquake PP at all costs, and it was like 40% to die. Well, it ends up being the same number of turns and just as fast to just not X special on this fight, and just two-shot the Rhydon. Works out nice if you critical it, but normally it's a two-shot, and it never attacks you because Giovanni has, quote, good AI. It always uses its ground-type move, Fissure, against you. And Fissure's a one-hit KO move that doesn't work unless it is faster than you. You can also use Guard Spec, which does nothing, or you can freeze it, which is actually the slowest outcome for that fight. So that's a major improvement that I've made. I think the original Nido route used that, and then Worcester was using the X special route, which works pretty well when you're when you have enough HP and good enough defense. Like you can take a Stomp or Fury Attack most of the time from the Rhyhorn. But I've just found that's a completely unnecessary risk when you do PP management so that you've elixired before Giovanni rather than before Sabrina. So the PP management in this run makes it so that the late game has very few risks and it's really fast. Here's a really cool strat found a while back by Extra Tricky. I need to be faster than Alakazam in this fight, and I'm not faster without boosting my speed. But instead of using an X speed, I can use an X special to give myself a badge boost in speed, and that is going to carry me through Alakazam because I don't level up until after Alakazam. You lose any additional badge boosts that you've gotten when you level up, but you stay level 49 through the Alakazam here, so you have that special badge boost. And the X special allows me to one-shot Pidgeot with Ice Beam, so it saves a turn. That's the first of two really cool strats in this split, and really it's the only strategy that's involved here. The rest of it is just execution and menuing from here until Lorelei. And this is one of the areas where I'm really happy with this run. In my PB, I made some mistakes, like I used a Super Repel earlier on accident, so I had to use one fewer Super Repel here, which was risking 2 tiles for an encounter, and then using Super Repels in suboptimal places in Victory Road. Here I didn't make that mistake, so I can just use standard strats here, which work out really well when you move perfectly. So I can actually save 10 seconds just by executing better on this split. And I've been practicing this split a lot, so if I can get that, I'll be up to 112, and then I'll save a little bit more time on Lorelei because I'll be using Pidgey against Lorelei. And Pidgey's Cry is shorter than Spearo's, which is what I used in my PB. Also, I have Oddish, shorter Cry than Paris. And I'm going to be depositing Oddish into the PC, and that you hear the cry of any Pokemon you deposit. Before getting into Elite Four strategy, which is pretty significant for this run, although I have a lead and I don't have to, the margins are pretty good, better than I expected for my first really good pace run at 149, just because of how lucky and how well the Fly, Pokeflute, and Koga splits went. So there's some strategy on the Elite Four, but it ends up being a bit easier to plan for the Elite Four because I have some time. Like I need to be 43 seconds ahead at the end, so I can afford to lose about 30 seconds after Lorelei if I execute well here. But I'll just go over some more menuing stuff because I wanted to get to that earlier, and I have a chance now as I'm just pushing boulders. There's some places in the game where you can just hold B to frame perfectly clear text, or in a fight, when you hear the level up jingle when you're not in red bar, if you start holding B during that jingle, you'll just not see your stats pop up, which usually saves frames. What I was doing, one thing that I've done in this split to save some frames and improve my execution so that I can save 10 seconds is when I was showing my badges to the guards to Victory Road, there was that little jingle that played. You didn't hear it because this is muted, but there was a bit of a pause there. Every time that they say, "Oh, that's the boulder badge," there's a jingle. You start holding B during that jingle, and the text box will just clear itself. I've been doing that throughout the run, and it's probably saved me like 5 seconds on this run. I've been doing other little menuing optimizations that are a bit more difficult, but there's the holding B to not see stats and to frame perfectly clear text boxes with jingles. I think that some people knew about that before, but it was really never documented. And when Viscov and I were working on menus recently, I came about that. So you never notice those as like, oh, I saved this much time just because of menus, but over the course of a run, it makes a difference. Now you see I used a super repel there, and my previous repel didn't wear off, even though it was going for a while. If you take one extra step between when I used the first super repel in Victory Road and the second, then your repel will wear off early, and you have to open up the menu an additional time to avoid getting encounters. Also, you see the repel wears off text, which I don't see here. So one little movement mistake usually costs 3 seconds in Victory Road, and with the timing of the boulders, it can be pretty difficult to do that, especially on console. But I practiced it a bunch, and so happy to have gotten it in this run. I'm depositing Pokemon. I deposit 2 of my Pokemon because I need the other one, which I'll explain here, but Pokemon's runs typically use in-game time, so you see your final time when you beat the Elite Four, and your Pokemon appear in the Hall of Fame before you see your in-game time, so you want to deposit them because it's faster to do that than it is to watch them go through the Hall of Fame. Now I'm going into this fight, Lorelai's got Ice-type Pokemon in Red Bar. I'd have a 50-50 chance of dying if I had stayed in there, but what I'm doing is I'm switching out to Pidgey so that Dewgong uses up its first turn. For some reason, on its second turn, it always uses Rest. There's just a weird mechanic with AI in this game in which certain trainer classes will favor certain types of moves on turn 2. Rest happens to be one of those types of moves, and Rest is technically super effective against Nidoking, so that gives it even more priority. Basically, Lorelai can't kill me on turn 2, and because I X accuracy on that turn, I have no chance of missing, so Lorelai is free unless she Gen 1 misses Pidgey. It's an awesome strat. I'm not exactly sure who to credit for that one, but when I saw it, I was a little skeptical because of the time it took to switch out, and then the consistency was like, alright, I've got to do this strat. It's amazing. And you just don't see that in other Pokemon games, that kind of weird AI and the way that you can use it so strategically. It's one of the things that makes this game so awesome to run. Yes, Gunner, it is 100% in red. In yellow, I believe it's 80%. And Gunner says credit extra tricky for that. So there I save time because of execution and shorter cries. Now I go into Bruno, and this is a pretty free fight as well because you're setting up with X accuracy. The only thing that I could die to is critical slam, and he doesn't usually use slam, and when he does, he can miss. Now here's a crazy thing. I'm going to come out of red bar here, and the reason that I'm going to come out of red bar is a difference of 3 stat experience, okay? A stat experience is what you get when you defeat Pokemon. Each Pokemon gives you stat experience corresponding to their base stat. So when I killed the Geodude, the one that I killed above Nugget Bridge, normally you get 40 stat experience from that Geodude, but I actually split that stat experience with Squirtle and just got only 20. And because of the way level ups worked out in this particular run with my DV, I get 1 extra hit point for this fight, which takes me out of red bar. If I had 34 out of 167, I'd have had red bar. It wasn't really a mistake. It would have actually been different if I had killed Zubat and Mount Moon, but sometimes it just works out that way. But yeah, if I had had 3 more stat experience and HP, I would have had 1 fewer HP in that fight, kept red bar, saved the 7 seconds. Anyway, I mentioned that the Elite Four is going to be a bit easier than it normally is because I'm ahead. I can afford to lose 25 seconds here. So this allows me to full restore before Agatha. Agatha can do so many things to you that if you're not at full health, you might just die to Confusion. I'm unlucky and I get Confuse Ray on the first turn. And I can use Nightshade, which is flat damage. I can use Dream Eater, which does nothing. Nice to get Dream Eater there. So Gengar is down, and that's the biggest worry. It wastes a lot of time with Hypnosis when that hits, because you have to play the Poke Flute, hear that jingle. Too much damage from Nightshade could be a problem, because I have to heal that off before Lance. Golbat is pretty safe when you're not confused, because 2 of its moves are Confusion moves. So if I had come out that turn as I did, and then it had used another Confusion move, that might have been run over. But I get the 10% freeze. I also could have criticaled. And now the rest of this fight is free. Worth noting is that I didn't buy enough X-Acts for this fight. And the reason for that is, number one, I wanted to have enough X specials for some flexibility on Silph Rival and here at the Elite Four. But number two is, a lot of time you just want to get rid of Gengar right away and go for that crit or freeze or hope Golbat uses Wing Attack. I mean, Golbat control you with Confusion moves, but a lot of the time, even if you have an X-Act, it's better to just use an X-Speed and go on this fight. So even though I lose some time on Agatha, this actually works out really well. I have just enough HP to survive a Hydro Pump and be in red bar. Only a really low roll Hydro Pump from Gyarados is going to put me out of a red bar that I will come out of on Lancer Champion. So I'm pretty much guaranteed to have red bar for the rest of the game, these next 2 fights if I want it. And I do need a bit of red bar because you see my time, I'm only 49 seconds ahead. So, and I had red bar in my PB for Lance and the champion. I also healed a bunch before this fight, so I am going to save some time here. This fight, unfortunately, regardless of your strats and knowing how much damage it does and all that, you can always just die to a crit Hydro Pump, so I am so badly hoping this doesn't critical. It's 15-16% about that to critical, and I also probably needed him to hit. I would have had to stall with Earthquake if he'd missed so that I can get red bar. That would have been really close, actually. I don't know that would have been the right play. It comes down to seconds. I really just want to hit that, 43, 44 seconds. And I'm on pace to do that, although there's always risk on the final fight of the game. Aerodactyl's a range if you have bad special, so that's another area where just having a high 12 special at level 8 is a lot better than having a low 12. So what I'm thinking right now is, okay, I can afford to lose, 24 seconds on champion. Okay, if I'm in red bar for champion as I was in my PB, I mean, I have to elixir here, so I'll lose a few seconds because I did that before Lance, but I'll be way far ahead. So I can actually afford to heal here, not have red bar. The healing menu plus the elixirs, like, I was thinking 8 seconds, 9 seconds. Being out of red bar, that's like 13 seconds. Okay, 22 seconds. If I lose 22 seconds, I'll still get it. This was crazy fast, just having to think of what to do for champion, because I mean, normally you just go into this fight in red bar, and normally you win it. But by healing, I increased my chance of winning this fight by from like 66% to 90%. Unfortunately, I may have used the wrong healing item here. I could have probably super potioned and been fine, but it was a really quick decision, and I wasn't sure that I could afford to super potion. It doesn't matter because he doesn't hit me, so now I know I've got it unless I get like a weird in-game time at the end. Like, I know that if I'm 45 seconds ahead, and this is going to be like 46, 47, then everything that I've seen about this game indicates that that will be a 149 in-game time. But what could have happened if I had super potioned there is, when you're not in red bar, then animations, you see that there are like actual animations for this fight. Animations take longer when you are, or I think some, not all animations take longer when you are not in red bar. And Pidgeot has wing attack, which is like 2 seconds, 2 seconds slower than Mirror Move or Whirlwind. So it was possible that if I had Super Potioned, it would have used wing attack twice and wasted like 4 seconds from the animation and not put me in red bar. From my current HP, or from the 50 HP that I had to start this fight, I could have survived 2 wing attacks, but not a wing attack critical, so that's why a Super Potion would have been nice. There's really no way to tell for sure whether the Super Potion would have cost me, because we don't keep track of the in-game time. We just keep track of the real time and then have a general idea what that corresponds to. Final time of 150.26, and based on experience from watching other runners, from doing runs myself, the cutoff is like 150.30. So if I had gotten anywhere under that, it was very likely a 149. But there are things to consider, such as the in-game time doesn't count the opening sequence in which you name your character, and I tend to mash really fast through that, just out of habit. And I also name my character A, which is faster than what some people do, where they name it I, or the first letter of their name. So it's possible that for me it's a cutoff of like 28 or 29. Also, in-game time is notoriously inconsistent in Pokemon Yellow. It has been consistent for this game, but there's been some crazy inconsistencies in Yellow, so I wasn't confident until I saw this 149 here that I'd gotten it, and it was a huge moment for me, because this was a really good run in addition to being the time that I wanted. Like, it's such a good run that I'm not even going to add that this is the world record to my YouTube highlight of this video, because if somebody beats this or ties this time, I won't even feel like, well, now I have to beat it, unless they like come up with some new stuff or play better than this. But I think, like, this run, just the quality of this run is what I was looking for. The fact that it is the best time is a bonus, I guess.